What would be a good example of allegory? Like Pilgrim's Progress or something like that, right? Where there's a character that's named like Charity or something like that. And that character is the embodiment of charity, and it's very overt. That's not what Tolkien is doing. He's creating a mythology, right? So he's creating a world. It's not historically, there's not actually Middle Earth, right? There's not actually someone named Bilbo. But in these stories, he's portraying good and evil as these things are battling out. He's portraying virtue. He's portraying heroes. He's portraying villains. He's portraying the nature of evil. And the advantage of someone like Tolkien is he's doing it with a well-polished Christianity as the information that's feeding this world that he's creating, right? So to study that, you're going to see beautiful poetic pictures of Christianity in action, or Christian virtues in action,
right?
Or all of these different things, right?
Yeah, and in creating this new myth, he's actually entering into that Western canon that he's receiving, and he's now participating in that, which is, I don't want to be, like sound like some old guy, get off my lawn, but that's one of the problems with this Amazon series, Rings of Power. Did you ever watch it?
Oh my gosh, should we geek out on how terrible that is?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say not only terrible, but actually evil.
It's heretical.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that because I like Lord of the Rings. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
But so Horace, he's writing in the 1st century in his Ars Poetica, and he's talking about decorum when you're writing fiction. So he's like, yeah, you can talk about Achilles if you're writing a new story, but it has to fit with the Achilles in all these other stories. Or you can write about Hercules, and, going back to the conversation on Judaism, you can talk about Enoch or Moses as long as it fits with this previous telling. And in sort of stealing Tolkien's lore, Amazon has broke with Western decorum, and they're now no longer representing those characters as sort of the canon has represented them before. So it's not only, I would say it's actually heretical. It's a sin, maybe not against God, but it's a sin against beauty and nature in sort of taking an established story and twisting it. You think about some of the Disney retellings of fairy tales, and I don't just mean in the last 5 years, but in the last 50 years, right? Some of those retellings are just totally changing the story.
Yeah, because the author that writes these has a reason that they're writing it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but before very recently, let's just say maybe before like at least 1800 to be safe, when the people are writing these myths, they're not saying, I want to sell a lot of books and I want to entertain an audience, right? Because that's not the books. There's not bookstores on every corner. That's not how things used to work. So when they're writing these, they are trying to use the art of telling a story. It could be mythology. It could be like a philosophy or whatever. But let's just say a mythology. They're creating this story in order to teach the good things that they've inherited. The things like strive after courage, and taking shortcuts means long delays. It means that things are going to go wrong for you. And they're playing these out in these beautiful stories. They're using their God-given talents in writing and creating and poetry and all of these things in order so that the reader can be further formed in this Western tradition, or this Christian tradition. Right. So it's a tool for formation towards the reader. Today, that's not usually the main goal of TVs, movies, or even books. It's just pure entertainment so that I can sell and that I can make money. Certainly, that's Amazon's overt goal. And then you could even make an argument that they also have overt goals of actually steering the hearer away from this heritage and tradition of Christian values and towards a new set of values. So hence they take something like Tolkien's beautiful whole Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings and beyond, all the Silmarillion, these other things he's written, where he's trying to, through his mythology, teach and enter into this Western tradition of teaching these wonderful things that people should strive after and that things that people should avoid. And Amazon takes it and says, I don't agree with anything that Tolkien believed, and therefore I'm going to take his characters and I'm going to twist them and tell lies about them.
And I think you have to say that that's part of the, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but you do have to say that's part of it, because it was $1 billion is what that series cost. It's not even a real number, and there's no way they made that back.
No.
In anything they've done. So there is this agenda, and I'm not even trying to say there's this hidden agenda, because you watch it and it's not very hidden.
No, yeah.
Greta Gerwig is doing the new Chronicles of Narnia series for Netflix, and Yeah, exactly. Right. And I would love
palpitations when that comes out.
I know. Yeah, I would love to be proven wrong, but and this is so my current love right now is Edmund Spenser, who I just kind of stumbled upon, and he was a poet during Elizabeth's reign, so end of the 16th century. So you had said, people aren't doing this to make money. Now there was a patronage system, right? So they weren't always just these starving artists, right? They did survive, but Spenser, he writes, it's the Fairy Queen, and it's this beautiful poem that's all the parts are drawing out different virtues. So you have this Red Cross knight who sort of turns out to be St. George, right, killing the dragon, and it's all drawing out different virtues. Yeah, like you said, his goal is that Christian readers will hear it or read it and walk away saying, I want to be like that, right? I want to overcome sans loy, right? He who is without the law. I want to be able to overcome this bad guy. And even I would say, I think that's just the nature of fiction, right? So, when I watch the newest Marvel movie, if nothing else, I'm stirred up to like go to the gym afterwards, right? Like, I want to be this, physically fit guy, right? There is always something in nature or in fiction that will change you. And my high school football coach said, every practice, he goes, you either get better or you get worse. You never stay the same. Yeah. And I think that's how media affects us. If you only watch, Amazon Rings of Power, you're not going to walk away with, you're certainly not going to hear about March 25th, and the incarnation of Christ. So we do have to seek after, even if it's not intentionally Christian, right? Something that comes from a moral fairy world, right? A moral world.
Yeah. So for those that are kind of watching right now, and I don't know, some people might be going, what the heck are these guys talking about? And I think the thing that and I want to keep hashing this out, but to kind of bring it back to the meta narrative is stories are powerful, very powerful. Our lives are stories, right? We live in stories. Every day we're living out a story. It's our story that is included with the people around us. It's included with God's story and his intention of, drawing us into himself. All of these things. We live in stories. We don't live in a commentary, right? In other words, we don't live in kind of a, right now I'm going to go do something brave, and brave is good because We live in this I want to be like Aragon, or I want to, certainly I want to be like King David and not King Saul. All of these stories have a great impact on us. So what we're advocating for, what you've advocated for, right, in your master's degree in the study, is to say Christians throughout time have used these great stories of tradition, or have, created stories in order to impart these deep biblical truths of how we should be formed as Christians, and to make that a very formative and potent, tool.